I feel like Nostalgia 64 has always been in development since the dawn of the human species. In reality, it's only been a few years, which feels like a long time, but it's completely understandable, considering Kirko has been able to put out other Banjo hacks in the interim with a pretty healthy consistency. Always one in time for Christmas, and always one in time for Halloween. When Nostalgia 64 fully released earlier this year, I was preoccupied with other videos, but I figured now would be as good a time as any to finally talk about it. However, one reason I was hesitant to play it is because I've already played a lot of it before. If you've been following Kirko as long as I have, you'll remember that he had been putting out individual levels of this hack as taste testers over the years, so if you've played all of those as I did, most of these levels will look familiar. So the Mario 64 levels, GoldenEye Dam, Greenwood Village, Bomberman Land, Donkey Kong Island, and the Pokemon level for instance, these were released as individual slices of what would become the Nostalgia 64 pie. They were a lot of fun when I played them as they released, and they also made me anxious to play the whole game once it actually came together, and now that it's out, I think it's a pretty great thing. The plot of Nostalgia 64 is that Bottles, yes, Bottles, has gone completely mad after being sidelined as an NPC for several games in a row, and now he wants to cause a big shitstorm of evil to the point that he actually throws Grunty and Bowser in prison. Yeah, that's the plot of the game, really, but it's mostly just a silly bit of context to explain why Banjo and Kazooie have to travel to other video game worlds at all. And that's the true premise of the game, Banjo and Kazooie running around different video game worlds that everyone who grew up with a Nintendo 64 would remember. You get to explore the game worlds of many beloved classic titles that made the Nintendo 64 into the legend that it is today, and also Castlevania. The hub world of the game is actually the inside of a giant Nintendo 64 console with ribbon cables, capacitors, and CPUs all over the place. And there's even a part where you have to install the expansion pack to be able to reach the Donkey Kong level. One thing that is missing, however, is the heat sink, which is really bad because that thing can run really hot, especially if you play Perfect Dark. To enter a level, you jump into a giant N64 cartridge with a picture of the game on it, and fun fact, the cartridges are European. Now how do I know that? Well, because of the shape of the indents on the lower back. This was a region locking mechanism, so you couldn't put it in a North American system. Look at you just learned something. Basically, this is a game that was designed just for people like me, and if you told me that I would be able to play something like this 10 years ago, I would have thought that I was being played. It's important to remember that from time to time because I kinda started to take these great ROM hacks for granted. We've been eating pretty good on the ROM hack front for a while. There's a whole lot of them out there, and they're getting better and more ambitious all the time, but it definitely wasn't always like that. It took a lot of time and a lot of work to get here, and we should never forget about that. I was very happy to learn shortly after starting the game that there is a lot more to it than what I had already seen, enough such that playing through the familiar stuff didn't feel redundant. This was helped by the fact that the levels I'd played before have since been tweaked and improved upon in subtle ways, but there's also a lot of just straight up new stuff that I was not expecting at all. To say the least, it's a game full of surprises. So the converted levels from other classic titles are a lot of fun, but I actually enjoy the really deep cut stuff that only the super nerds in the audience will understand. The best new level for me is one of the oldest levels in Banjo history, and that is this level you're looking at here. This is a beta, possibly alpha level from the ancient Banjo Kazooie prototype that has only ever been seen through Rare Replay's development videos. Since this extremely early iteration of the game was made in a pre-Mario 64 world, the level is played from an almost 2.5D perspective. And it's remarkable how accurate it looks to that old footage, while also filling in the blanks when necessary. We don't know what the entire level looked like exactly, so there's an element of improvisation to the design here that works out pretty well in my opinion. And then you meet Edison, the original protagonist of Project Dream, the Super Nintendo adventure game that would eventually become Banjo Kazooie. But you probably knew that already. Speaking of things you may or may not have known already, throughout the game you'll actually learn a lot of fun facts about the N64 and its games. I thought I knew everything there was to know about this stuff, so I was surprised to learn that Super Mario 64 technically sold more than any game on the PlayStation. Although it was a pack-in title a lot of the time, so that's kinda cheating, but whatever. Get in or get the f*** out. It is a lot of fun to mentally catalog all the little references and cameo appearances. One of my favorite examples was one time I died and Colonel Campbell from that game that I have never played and don't even like started yelling at me over codec. All kinds of characters from many different games will start conversations with you out of the blue. The great 6T Ford, the man who calls you to the adventure, will list off fun facts about the N64 era and of Rare itself, and sometimes Kazooie will impersonate him and say some bullshit that isn't true because of course she does. The gameplay is classic Banjo Kazooie fun, straightforward, focused, and exciting. There are some levels that require a little bit more attention though, attention to the environment and attention to the instructions so you don't accidentally kill one of the scientists in the GoldenEye level and fail the mission like I did when the standalone level was released. One thing that really flew out of left field was the lengthy post-game. Once you beat the game, there is still a good chunk of content to go through to actually fully complete it, by which I mean you have to hunt down every single Mumbo token, which there are many of. The game mercifully keeps track of your progress on this matter with a helpful screen to tell you how many Mumbo tokens you've got and missed in each individual level, which of course includes the smaller side levels as well. This means that you're not flying completely blind once you go on the long-ass hunt for these things, which makes you less likely to give up and move on to something else. There's also a super secret game mode once you've gotten all that, but I don't believe I should spoil it for you right now, but it's pretty funny. The presentation is great as always, all of the levels have gotten a highly dignified treatment in this new context, and the music is phenomenal, adapting the old tunes for the Banjo sound font in a seamless and natural way. I think my favorite songs are actually the beta songs that didn't make it into the original Banjo Kazooie, but later had their motifs repurposed for other titles. Like, listen to this. Does that sound familiar? As a sum of parts, Nostalgia 64 is absolutely a nostalgia trip. It's a polished and fun roller coaster of references and cameos that I think anybody with an appreciation of Rare's golden era and Nintendo in the 90s will fully appreciate. Also, did you know that the Nintendo 64 was followed up by the Nintendo 65? No? Well, I guess you're a fake fan then. If you want to prove that you're a real fan, you're gonna have to play this ROM hack. And that's a wrap for today, but be sure to come back tomorrow. I won't spoil it, but it's a pretty mystical game. That is all, and Merry Christmas, cousins!
Huh?